Such a pleasure to have you here, and that profile is so rich. We have with us somebody who has the unique understanding of government and corporate finance, technology, law, policy, government systems. So a lot of questions are coming your way, Dr. Pandey.
Thank you.
So first of all, what I want to ask you is that when NFRA came into existence, we already had the ICAI, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So what was the rationale behind setting up a regulatory body like NFRA?
Yes. Before I answer this question, I'll take you to, a little back, maybe something which happened about 25 years back. We all know that, there was a company particularly in US, Enron, known to be a solid company, right? And then Enron also had set up a power plant in India also, and then it was really a global leader in the energy sector. That company, collapsed all of a sudden. And when it collapsed, and it led to, wiping out of billions of dollars of, the investors' money, and it was a huge setback to entire the capital market across the world. So that time the people got into this thinking that what could be the reason? Because, as per the US SEC law, all financial results or reportings, financial statements were being audited year after year, and there were no signs of any stress. Right, there was no signs of any failure. So the people wondered that what happened, because the company was reporting profit, very, very good, the sound health of the company, and they were being confirmed by the auditors, right? And that time it was realized that, there are some systemic problems. And that is what it led to finally. They said that, look, there is a system of auditor, but who regulates the auditor, right? Who audits the auditor? And then the discussion took place across the world that, of course, auditing is a profession, accounting is a profession. Then should it be regulated as a self-regulation? Or should it undergo something like, because there is a huge amount of public interest involved. It is not a question of just a profession, but actually it is a huge amount of public interest involved. And wherever you have a public interest involvement, then should it be self-regulated or should it be regulated by an independent body? And that time this Sarbanes-Oxley Act came way back in 2003, and that led to the establishment of PCAOB in USA. It was followed by FRC, Financial Reporting Council in UK, then the Canada, then Singapore, all over the place. So what happened that most of the countries, in the first decade of this millennium, they had set up this independent body to regulate the accounting and auditing profession. In India, this discussion was also taking place, and then we had a Satyam. Now again the same story, the Satyam, there the same thing that, the company was a kind of a darling of the stock market, capital market.
Yes.
It failed. And then that was also being audited by a very eminent auditor. And then the question arose that if the auditor was giving year after year and certifying a very good financial results, then how did it fail? And then again this discussion took place. Finally in 2013, when the Companies Act, the new Companies Act was brought in, Companies Act 2013, then this principle of independent regulatory body, so far as the auditing and accounting standard is concerned, that was incorporated in this act.
Yes.
However, there was a lot of confusion, and then finally, because see, if you try to bring in something, there is bound to be a resistance to change, and because of that change, that didn't happen. Yes. And then thereafter, we had a series of many other corporate failures like ILFS, PNB, and everywhere the same question. Finally, in 2018, this came up.
Yeah.
So actually, this was a global trend.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying we needed an independent body to audit the auditors, and that was the need of the hour. NFRA has taken tough stance against errant practices and practitioners as well. You have faced backlash. Most recently, 11 of your orders got quashed by the Delhi High Court for not having a division of function. How do you see the whole setup of NFRA? Is it a fair criticism?
You see, whenever you bring in any new system, and particularly during the initial stages, there will be a lot of the viewpoints. And my own experience is that whenever you bring a very something the transformative change, it will meet all kinds of resistance. And I have seen that when I was dealing with Aadhaar.
Yes.
I mean, imagine in case of an Aadhaar, what kind of a the entire movement against Aadhaar happened. And finally finally the matter went to the Supreme Court, and finally Supreme Court said this, it is constitutional. Just look at the GST. The GST was introduced in 2017, and thereafter how much the problems arose. And this is what I am saying from my personal experience. Similarly, when this law was introduced, when NFRA was formed, there were a lot of, there were a lot of points saying that, does it have a retrospective effect? Does it have the power to do a summary proceeding? Does it have the, the power to pass disciplinary orders? What happens to the legacy systems, and so and so? Luckily, I must tell you that, in the span of about 2-3 years, a lot of issues have been sorted out through the intervention of the court. I mean, some by NCLAT, some by the Supreme Court, and a recent High Court order that you just now mentioned.
Yes.
Actually, it is a 450-page order masterpiece. It has actually resolved, I will say, the 99% of the problems.
It has come in support.
Right. But there is only one issue on which the High Court has deferred with us,
yes,
saying that it's a question of internal working of a division, right? And saying that if the division is there, then it should have been better, and that is why it has cost. But at the same time, it has given us a liberty, saying that form a division, and then you can revive the proceedings. So therefore, what I am trying to say is that in this particular case, considering the amount of challenge that happened to this entire system of independent regulation, the things are getting settled reasonably fast.
Yes.
As compared to my experience,
yes,
in Aadhaar, it took almost 9 years, right?
Yeah.
And in this particular case, it is happening, very soon, 2-3 years.
Yeah, you talked of resistance, and one big resistance that you still continue to face is from ICAI, sir. Now, you've brought in a lot of changes to various audit norms, and you've proposed it to the MCA. In spite of resistance from ICAI on many issues, how, and more importantly, why did you push through these changes?
Yeah, you see, I wouldn't call it a resistance. We must understand, their perspective. The ICAI, in fact, the ICAI is the part of NFRA. And when they bring in certain viewpoint, this is a viewpoint, which may be being held by, the many individual members of the institute.
True.
And, they have a lot of apprehensions. And I would say that, that we need to work very actively with them to remove those apprehensions, right? For example, let's say, some of the things like, the SA600, for example. And we want to align ourselves with the global standards. Because if you see, we are living in this, the connected world. And when we want to become a Vikasit Bharat, 2047, we are saying that we will be somewhere around 28 trillion economy. For that, we need to grow, and our GDP needs to grow at the rate of at least, 9%. If you don't do that, then this number will not hit. For that, you require a huge amount of investment. Investment from the domestic front, the institutional investor, retail investor, as well as the FDIs. And if you don't have the trust in the financial reporting, if you don't have the trust and also the, the standard global reporting framework, how will people trust our figures?
Yeah.
We may claim that this is so much of the, our profit is so much, our revenue is growing at this rate. But then if there are no sound reporting system or the auditing system, how will an investor, let's say sitting in London or Singapore or New York, will trust the figures being reported by Indian companies? And therefore, what we need to do is that we need to adhere to the global standards, and that is what we are trying to communicate to the chartered accountant professions. And I am very glad that when I talk to them, the chartered accountants on one-to-one basis, the large number of them, they agree to this, saying that yes, we need to do this. I'll give you another example. Let's say the Infosys. We have about 6 to 7 lakh chartered accountants in our country. It's a massive, huge manpower. We have a largest number of chartered accountants in the world. Now we can become the accounting and auditing powerhouse of the world. The world's accounting and auditing can happen in India. And how will that happen?
Yes.
Unless and until we become expert in this, expert in the adherence of the global standards. Take example of Infosys, the IT world. In the IT world, let us say all these IT companies in 80s and 90s, if they were saying that, we will do it in our own way and we will not integrate with the global processes, right? Then in that particular say, do you think that, the Infosys, TCS or HCL or Wipro, they would have become a global companies? So it is very necessary that we integrate ourselves to the global standards, and that is something, which I am seeing that, the people who are involved in this profession, they are also understanding.
Even the global companies, the big four, have been under your radar. For last 2 years, you've been inspecting them and you've been trying to point out gaps that they need to fill over various contentious issues. Can you tell us a little bit about how has the progress been in that area? How satisfied are you with the changes they have brought in?
You see, if I look back, during the last few years, if I see the quality of audits now, and if you just compare not very long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years back, the quality of audit has improved. And that is why I must, compliment the auditing firms, whether they are the big ones or the medium ones or the small ones. We are seeing the across the board improvement in the auditing there, and that is an encouraging sign. So what we have started, that in addition to our usual disciplinary proceedings and other things, which I would say that there are about 7,000 listed companies in our domain, and during last 1 year we would have passed not more than about 100 orders.
Yes.
Right. So that way we are quite proportionate in the sense that we are not going on a spree of passing disciplinary order left and right.
Yeah.
But what we have also started saying that can we have non-adversarial, because disciplinary proceedings are kind of an adversarial, can we have a non-adversarial system? And that is why we have introduced the system of inspection.
Yes.
So we go and visit the audit firm. We say that, look, what are you doing? What is your process? How do you improve the quality? How do you do a supervision? How do you build the capacity? So ultimately, what we are finding that if I go and visit one audit firm, let's say, and that audit firm actually audits 100 companies, 100 listed companies, you will see that one inspection, which takes maybe 3 to 4 months, actually leads to the improvement of audit quality in about 100 firms. And in those 100 firms, if the audit quality improves, then there is a more credibility, the more trust, more transparency, and more confidence of the investors.
Yes, absolutely. You talked about the whole global context. Now, in this whole global context, often in FTAs, in WTO, this whole discussion of reciprocity comes, of foreign firms coming into India. Right now, we don't have a lot of foreign accounting firms in India. So, if we want them to come and Indians to utilize this big opportunity that this profession presents, do you think that the regulation needs to be thought of in a different way? And if I may add to this came up in our discussions during the day, and Madam Finance Minister also talked about the overreaching regulations and how we need to deregulate. How do you see NFRA's role evolving in all this?
Actually, if you see, NFRA could be a case study. If you look at the regulation part, excuse me, if you look at the regulation part, you know, the overreach, over-regulation, you know, this is a problem which has been highlighted all across, right? And then there is a very, very conscious the consideration of the government saying that how do we reduce this, you know, the regulatory burden or the compliance burden. Now, in case of an NFRA, why I say that this could be a case study, that entire NFRA working, there is only one section, you know, there is only one section, section 132 of the Companies Act, which governs the entire working of NFRA, right? And because, you know, the section is so, you know, so crisp and it is so brief, and because of that, I would say that, you know, it is mostly based on, so we are, even though we are saying reporting, it's not that, you know, they have to go and report, it is kind of a self-reporting. Yeah. Nobody else goes and does the inspection. Like, for example, the companies, there are about more than 15 lakh companies in the country. Every company has to do a self-certification of their financial statement. No government officer goes and says that, look, you know, this is what you have done. Even post their certification, it is audited not by any government officer or the government machinery, it is or by inspector, it is actually done by an auditor. And that is the global practice. Yeah. So in fact, that is why I was saying that, can we have a similar model? You know, the similar model in other sectors, for example, that you trust the business, saying that, you know, you do your business, you report yourself, and then thereafter there is another body, another non-government body, which will come and do the audit, and then there could be a regulator who will supervise the working of those auditors or the accountants. But not in the sense that, you know, you'd go and start doing, you know, the entire things yourself. Yeah. So I think, you know, there is a, you know, I'm very glad that this kind of a discussion is taking place, not only in India. You have seen what is happening in the other parts of the world, right?
So have you seen what is Trump's recent announcement of pausing the FCPA enforcement? Right. Do you think it sets a bad precedence? There's some large companies can take advantage and go to certain countries and, you know?
No, if you see, you know, so far as one particular country is concerned, you know, I'm not in a position to comment on that. But as a matter of a principle, I'm saying that if you want the businesses to grow and if you want India to compete, then, you know, our regulatory standards have to be at the global level, and at the same time, we should be very, very conscious that we should not do anything which actually increases the compliance burden, right? And there are always a smart way of doing this. You know, I'll give you an example. In case of a GST, you know, it's that GST, every business whose turnover is more than 40 lakhs has to file a GST returns. You know, many of them file monthly return, many of them file quarterly returns. Now, what do they need to do? In the earlier system, they should have been audited by, you know, the tax officer, each one of them. And then the demand would arise saying that, look, you know, there are 2 crore, 1.5 crore GST dealers, and therefore we need you know, maybe 50,000 more officers, right? Yeah. And that is how, you know, you go on adding the you know, the compliance burden. So in case of a GST, what was done is that through the technology, you file your return, your sales will be matched with the purchases of your, you know, the buyers, yeah. And then accordingly, if the system matches, then perhaps there is a, you know, not much case of the audit. Yeah. In case of an income tax, what happens today? The income tax, 7 crore returns are filed. How many returns are picked up for scrutiny? Less than 2 lakhs, right? So all other returns are accepted or scrutinized through the system. Yeah. So here is the chance and here is the opportunity that if you want to reduce this compliance burden, first of all, there has to be clarity in the law, in the regulation, and and at the same time use technology. Yeah. And I think the technology could be the answer for the, you know, in every field, as much as so in the field of accounting and auditing.
Absolutely. So there's another aspect to reporting and accounting, that is the ESG, which is becoming very popular now. We had a panel earlier on, climate change. While it is voluntary now, is this something that NFRA is looking at to ensure best practices in these disclosures, even though they are voluntary, but for investors and globally, it is gaining more and more importance?
See, globally the scenario currently is that in case of an ESG, it's very important. And therefore, there is a lot of investors who would like the companies to be compliant to the ESG norms. But unfortunately, there are no common standards yet. Globally I'm talking about. There are, the last time I counted, I was told that there are 36 different standards or the formats. So what happens, one company will follow, let's say, a standard X. Another company follows a standard Y. How do you compare? How does an investor decide whether the X is better or the Y is better in terms of ESG compliance? So in fact, this particular viewpoint, is being still debated at the international level. And then the good thing is that G20, they actually entrusted this task to the IFRS Foundation, saying that, okay, look, you developed an international, the financial reporting standards. Can you develop ESG reporting standards? And that is under the way. So that's a very good thing. Once that happens, and then of course, I have always held that whenever international standards are developed, we as a developing country, we have the ambition of growing. We must integrate ourselves with the global, the global standards. So as and when these ESG standards are, developed by the IFRS, we should be in the readiness to do this. And for that readiness, I am very glad that what SEBI has done, the SEBI has started prescribing to the companies, saying that voluntarily you comply with some of these standards, so that as and when those standards get developed,
you are ready.
Then you wouldn't say that, look, I want 4 more years to make us ready for adoption of those standards. So you are ready to accept those standards.
We have less than 10 minutes left, sir, and sir has kindly agreed to take a couple of questions from the audience.
Yes, please.
Can we please have the microphone?
Hello.
Please introduce yourself before you ask your question.
My name is Deepak Malpani. I'm a practicing cost accountant. Sir, you have been a great pioneer of different pilot projects of Government of India. Since we have heard about regulation and deregulation, and we live in a very competitive and competent world, and somehow government also talks about inclusive growth.
I was able to hear you without mic. Right.
Government also talks about inclusive growth.
Able to hear. Now when we are talking about inclusive growth, I feel like under the Income Tax Act, ICI is conducting income tax audit. Now when it comes to inclusive growth, what do you feel as a key member of NFRA, that what should be the role of professionals like CMA and CS to be included under the same definition of accountant, so as it gives a clear picture and all-inclusive growth to everyone? Thank you.
This issue of, let's say, I've also heard the suggestion saying that, why the cost accountant or the company secretary shouldn't be, given the authority to audit. So I think, these are the issues for which, I believe there are, I can't, give a direct answer to this, because unless and until I fully understand that, the kind of your training of the different branches, like in the sense that unless and until you are trained, and in case supposing if the cost accountants are able to prove to the policy makers or to the government saying that their training is equivalent to, let's say, if a certain auditing has to be done or certain task has to be done, the cost accountant or the company secretary, they can do this. So then, there could be a case, and then the matter could be considered. But without that exercise, because, I will give you an example. Long time back when I was working in Maharashtra, at that time a big debate took place, whether the Ayurvedic doctors can prescribe the, the allopathic medicine, or the homeopathic doctors can prescribe this. So the question is that it's not a question of inclusive growth. What we need to understand, I'm not saying that the cost accountant, they don't have the knowledge. What I'm saying is you have to, build an argument on the basis saying that, look, these are my, the training curriculum, these are my, the curriculum, and on this basis, can I be given this, right? I mean, so I think, because tomorrow, let us say that, some engineer will say that, look, I also do know something about the, the finance, and therefore I should be able to do that. So I think, those things will have to be done. So I'm not saying that, the cost accountant or the company secretary cannot be included in this, and even the vice versa. The chartered accountants tomorrow can say that, can I be a company secretary, right? So question here is that, you have to know, you have to understand the training curriculum, the course content, and also the entire training. It's not a question of saying that, this is my domain, this is my area, my jurisdiction, and nobody else can enter. If it can be certain kind of equivalence can be established, then of course it can be done.
That's a very impartial view, sir, and I hope that drives home a point. If there are no other questions.
Ma'am, I do have.
Okay, we'll take one last question.
Hi, sir. I am CA Jatin Kochar. Kudos to you, first of all, that NFRA is doing really good. I have just seen on Google that you have imposed penalties on various chartered accountants and the companies like PwC and KPMG something. So my question is that you imposed penalty and barred them for doing auditing for 5 years. But the instance happened in 2018-19 and you penalized them in 24. So my question to you is that these things should be done on the spot. So rather than going to chartered accountant's office to visit later on, why can't you conduct some joint audits or surprise visits to the client premises with their permission so that these issues can be traced immediately? Because in this Z issue, the 200 crore FD issue was discovered in later on, but it was of 2018. Similarly, Reliance Capital issue, we came to know later on, and Mishtan Foods recently happened in the share market that, promoters frauded and auditors helped them. So these kind of issues we came later on when they come into the market. Why can't we address them prior, or
yes,
we can?
We got the question.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. One more lady wants to ask. That's the last one, and then we'll wrap.
Okay, mine is, I'm Shweta from Safe Express. So mine is related to ESG compliance, and like you said, there are 36 different ESG formats, that exist in the world. And in India, SEBI has mandated BRSR format to be adhered by the top 1,000 revenue generating companies. And then you said IFRS is going to come up with a new format. So do you think it will be easier for companies to migrate from BRSR format to the new format, or how does it go?
Yeah.
One is on timely action,
Right.
and the other is on BRSR.
So I would agree with you that, the actions should be taken timely. And there is a reason why, in these cases that you have cited, there have been delay of 4 or 5 years. So you must understand that many of these cases pertain to year 2017, 18, 16, 17, and so and so. The NFRA was established in 2018 towards the end. And then as it happens that, whenever you develop a new institution, then, you have to find, many of the logistics problem. You have to hire people, you have to build the staff, and so and so. And then, so while it was being done, then this COVID struck. And then the 2 years got lost in COVID. And then finally, I will say that NFRA actually started working, in of a certain scale, somewhere around from 2021-22 onwards, right? And so that is why you can see this time lag. But otherwise, if you see some of our recent cases, that way we are quite up to date. Many cases we have taken cognizance where the audit happened in 2021-22, and then in this year we are we are reviewing those. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, that this disciplinary part is it is something it is very unpleasant part, and which somebody has to do. Therefore, we are doing it. But ideally, I would like to see that I have to pass a least number of disciplinary orders. we have to be doing something else to improve the quality, and that is why I mentioned about this inspection, which is non-adversarial. Again, I will go back to this income tax example. Way back in 70s and 80s, every income tax return used to be scrutinized by an income tax officer, because there were only maybe few lakhs income tax returns being filed. And that time the demand is to be raised that every year the income tax returns increase in number of income tax returns is 10%, therefore you increase our own staff. So if we had gone by that, then you will say that look, the number of returns versus number of income tax officer, and then the 7 crore, right? So let's say the 100 returns divided by the 7 crore divided by 100, so you'll have a 70 lakh.
Yeah.
So, this is not a very smart way of doing things, right? So we said that, all right, we are not going to scrutinize every income tax return. We will use technology, we will use data analytics, and we'll do that. Similarly here, in case of a company's audit, there are 7,000 listed companies which is under NFRA jurisdiction, right? So in 7,000, do I need to audit all 7,000? No. Do we need to audit the audit of the 700 companies? Answer is no. We should be using technology, we should be using data analytics to figure out maybe 10, 15, and plus this inspection, and that should actually serve the purpose. And that is why from the NFRA side, we want to remain the lean. NFRA should be a lean organization. I mean, I don't know how many of you, the entire strength of NFRA today is about 40 people. So we have only about 40 to 50 people, right? And then it is a natural tendency I've seen in the government that, in any government, unless and until you expand, you are not satisfied, right? And therefore, I have taken a very firm view saying that, look, I want to remain lean, right? And whenever any demand comes or any suggestions are made, from my own organization saying that, sir, I need to hire, 10 more people. In fact, today there was some proposal. They say that, can we hire, 10 more people? I said that why? I mean, in the sense that, and then I throw a challenge to my own people saying that it is challenge to you, and it is also, your own smartness that can you do this work within the existing manpower, right? And so therefore, we need to do this. So one is, of course, the timely action and doing it smartly. About the, the ESG, you mentioned about the, the BRSR format. I think this is a step in right direction. That once let's say the top 1,000 companies, if they start complying with this BSR format, then in that particular case, as and when this, the IFRS system comes, it will be a question of only, adapting to the new format. But so far as the underlying principles are concerned, those principles will prevail.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking the questions and the time you have given us. It was a very, very lively and enriching discussion for all of us. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. We'd like to present you with a memento. Can we please have a memento for this, for sir?
Could we please have the mementos? Thank you so much. That was such a wonderful discussion.